Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Riots in China. Chinese citizens turning against CCP in deadly attack.
Protesters in China's largest city crying down with the Chinese Communist Party and down with Xi Jinping.
Bloody shootouts erupt, citizens kill officials, social revenge and riots explode as China's economy teeters on the edge.
Whoa.
Things are getting out of hand in China. Just 2 weeks ago, we had pro-democracy banners go up in a major Chinese city, and now riots are erupting all across.
Remember what we talked about? Somebody said the quote, "You can be a dictator if the economy is not doing well."
All of them are the same.
Across the country. In fact, in one city, things got so out of hand that we had a protester kill a CCP official, and the public was celebrating the death. We had one Chinese commenter say publicly that under economic hardship, the CCP's evil doing will spark public retaliation. Comments like these are worrying Xi Jinping because they are threatening the CCP's rule.
But I don't think that they can sustain it for too much longer. And there's a couple of reasons. Xi Jinping, because he's turned his back on consumption as being the fundamental basis of the Chinese economy, there's only one way out to rescue an increasingly grim situation, and that is to export more. China's not growing at the 5.0% pace reported for last year. It may not even be growing at all. But we know the trend is down because we can see price signals that suggest, actually, who scream deflation. But even if China were growing at 5.0, it probably wouldn't be growing fast enough for those guys to pay back debt. China not only has a problem with Trump at this moment, China not only has a problem with an economy that looks like it's contracting, China has now its 2008. In 2008, they did not want to suffer a recession. So they overstimulated their economy, they piled on the debt, and now that debt is just too heavy. So you got all of these crises hitting at the.
So I'm confused. Chinese own a lot of American debt. So who owns Chinese debt? America? Like everybody's in
all
debt.
suspicious. I was wondering because
Everybody's in debt.
I was saying, how can China have all this money, but then there's no transparency? So do we know that the money is actually there, or is it
Or is
just like
faux money?
it's like full money?
Phony? Monopoly money?
The same time. And so Xi Jinping, who a couple months ago, he looked like he was going to rule the world. Right now, he's going to be lucky just to wake up alive in the morning.
That beating had to do with the Chinese mortgage crisis, which has only gotten worse since the tariff war has started. Now, last time we made a video on the China's mortgage crisis and the protests that were taking place in the country because of it, our video was demonetized and restricted within few hours of the upload. To us, it didn't make sense. Why? Because we talk about protests in many different countries, and for some reason, this specific video was restricted and not the other ones. Well, more than a year after we published that video, YouTube decided that it had made a mistake and it decided to unrestrict and monetize our video. Now, we have a feeling that since we're talking about the same subject today, this video may also get demonetized and restricted. So if you guys can help us out and hit that like and subscribe button down below and share it on your social media, that way we won't need the YouTube algorithm. Now, before we talk about the mortgage crisis, I quickly want to go over the democracy protest that took place in China just 2 weeks ago. So this happened on April the 15th or maybe April the 14th, so roughly 2 weeks ago, and this is the report.
I just think humans just make life complicated for fun.
Humans?
People.
People or in the government?
I think people overall.
People?
People, the government, there's people in the government. Who are they? They're not aliens.
They are people, I know, but you think regular people make life complicated?
Yes, they do. They do. Sometimes you make your situation harder than it has to be. You don't have to live complicated.
Massive banners demanding political change were hung from an elevated bridge in Chengdu, China, reading, "Without political system reform, there will be no national rejuvenation. The people do not need a political party with unchecked power. China does not need anyone to point out the direction. Democracy is the direction." The protester behind this bold act shared.
That's what's kind of shocking to me. Now we live in 2025, right? Social media, the TikToks, the Instagrams, whatever. Every people like in countries that are communist, that dictatorships, they see how the free world lives. How does it still manage to exist?
Because I would think they don't have access to seeing it.
But the thing is, Chinese people do though. Like, don't they have access to TikTok? Isn't it owned by Chinese? I thought they
They have their own TikTok.
No, I know they have their own, but can they access like TikTok? Because I get, how North Korea does it. Like shut down. Internet has 36 websites or whatever they're all in North Korean.
Mm.
Very, very like completely cut off, all the internet access. Okay, you can control the people, but the moment people escape that and open their eyes, I don't see how this type of political system can ever work. I don't know.
The photo of the scene before he was forcefully disappeared. Now,
But I mean, it is working so far. China, Russia, they, I don't know.
you guys can assume what that means, but we do have more information about the protester now. But before we get to that, let's finish this report. He revealed that he had spent an entire year preparing for this moment, determined that it'd be seen and remembered no matter the cost. His final words before all contact was lost were, "All I wish is for democracy in China." Foreigners do not understand the courage it takes to do this. Nobody suffers more at the hands of the CCP than the Chinese people, and it seems they are finally speaking up. In a second, we'll get into a report of Chinese youth getting on Chinese social media, which is highly censored, and
Ooh.
calling out Xi Jinping directly. But
What's
before
highly
we get to that,
censored?
I do
Their social media, I think.
Yeah, that's what he said. He did just said it. Rewind it.
No, I heard it.
Rewind.
I thought you asked me.
No, I'm saying, oh, it's highly censored.
Oh, I thought you asked me what's highly censored.
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
That's why I'm saying to you that they don't really see everything.
want to cover a little bit more about where these banners were hung. You see, the city was very appropriately picked. Chengdu is the same city that TikTok influencers from the US always ooh and ah from and tell everyone that they don't know the real China. So here's a reminder that just like any other country, the real version of itself has many different versions. The difference is, in an authoritarian country, people aren't allowed to openly criticize the versions of a country that the government doesn't want you to see. But every so often, we get reminders that there is a whole lot going on beneath the surface that people stay silent on. Well, now it seems that the Chinese people are speaking up, and this protest was just the beginning. But before we get to other protests, here's what we know about this activist. Now, before I leave this report, I do want to mention for
maybe the terrorists are helping China, because if they have a problem with the government, it's gonna expose the government a lot to how they deal with these tariffs.
I was just thinking the same thing. Maybe it's helping the Chinese people to
Be free.
reform from
communism.
inside.
Yeah.
for everyone who might be worried that this protester is already
But at the same token, I kind of feel like when the Ukraine war happened and everybody started squeezing Russia, everybody was saying, "Ooh, it's gonna be they're gonna take Putin over," because the economy was doing real bad at one point, Russian economy. So everybody's like, "Ooh, they're gonna finally this is gonna be at the end of Soviet Russia." Well, guess what? Nothing happened. So this kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but we'll see.
already in CCP custody, so we're not putting him at risk by sharing his picture. In fact, this picture has been making rounds on Chinese social media already. The activist who hung the banners over the overpass in Chengdu is named Mile Xinglin, a 27-year-old from Sichuan. According to him, these banners have been prepared for a year. Before the action, he encountered a labor dispute with Shenzhen Board Vision Hinjuan Technology. During the process of complaining to the Labor Inspection Department, the staff passed the buck in various ways, even hung up the phone before he could finish explaining the situation. Now, this may seem like a trivial matter, but we have to realize this was likely one of many things that's bothering the Chinese population, and this is what pushed him over the edge. Remember the Arab Spring in Middle East? It started in Tunisia when a produce vendor had his cart seized by the authorities, and when he went on to complain about it, they just laughed him off. So he set himself on fire to protest the authoritarian regime, and within weeks of that happening, the government had fallen. And again, that's not to say that that will happen in China, but we have to keep in mind that a lot of big protests start off as a small event, and it seems that's happening in China already. Here we have another teenager complaining publicly about the way Xi Jinping is dealing with this trade war.
最近中美又开始打贸易战。
Recently, China and the US have started fighting the trade war again. The US says they'll raise tariffs, and the CCP immediately says they'll fight to the end. It sounds strong and full of backbone, but think about it. Who's really suffering? It's not the officials or the rich, it's us, the common people. Look at life now. The prices go up every year. Eggs are expensive. Meat is expensive, and fruit is even more expensive. Young people can't find jobs. After graduation, they're unemployed. Internet layoffs, factory closures, small businesses closing down. But the CCP isn't thinking about how to save the economy. Instead, they keep cracking down on private enterprises while fighting the US in the tariff war. They claim it's to protect national interests. But who is the country?
Kind of crazy. She basically described everything that's happening here just in
Yeah.
reverse from their exactly identical
And
situation.
all around the world too.
Yeah, how people feel. Wow, that's crazy.
Isn't it us? Our jobs are in danger, and they're talking about sovereignty and toughness. What's the point? The US raises tariffs, and China immediately retaliates. It may look like a back and forth, but the real cost is being paid by us, the common people. Factory orders are gone, foreign trade is in chaos, workers are laid off, and bosses are running away. There's no protection for people's livelihoods. The CCP always says it doesn't start trouble, but isn't it causing trouble now? If the country's leader really cared about the people, they would focus on making our lives better, not just making a tough face for show. There are no winners in a trade war. It's about power and wisdom. When they say they'll fight to the end, they're gambling with people's livelihoods. In the end, they fight, but we starve. We don't want to be dragged into this. We don't want to pay the price for their struggle. We just want a stable job, food on the table, and a peaceful life. It's that simple.
Unfortunately for the CCP,
Yeah, I'm sure everybody in America can resonate with
Relate,
that. Yeah.
their problems do not just stop there. If you guys have been following the channel, we've been talking about it, how China's economy is unsustainable, and that was even before the tariff war started. You see, China has been having the mortgage crisis that has been the bane of its existence. Well, things haven't gotten much better for the CCP, and Chinese citizens are still very angry about the CCP officials messing up their future. Here you can see protesters protesting against unfinished building projects. Owners of unfinished buildings were beaten and arrested by police for defending their rights at the government office of Daya Bay Economics Development Zone in Guangdong. Due to unfinished property, they have launched up to 30 rights protection actions but have not made any progress so far. The on-site video shows that owners gathered at the gate of the development zone building, blocking government gate and shouting slogans such as "Give me back my house" and "Down with the profiteers." Now, as I mentioned earlier, this has been going on for almost 2 decades now, but the situation got bad a few years ago, and it has continued to get worse since then. You see, tariffs are not helping because people are getting laid off, and only a little bit of savings that they did have, they put it into real estate.
I can imagine because, American companies are no longer buying, so their income is not coming. Like as a lot of those factories sell on factories or just businesses sell on like online on Temu, on AliExpress or wherever, the platforms they used to sell, and they have workers. So those orders stop coming in because nobody here now wants to buy from China because they kind of just want to wait it out, see what's what. Those orders pause, that revenue stop. You have to lay off the people because you have nothing to pay them with.
Also, they changed the policy where if you are sending, if the order is under $100, they don't have to pay some sort of fee. But if it's over 100, they do, which is why their prices are relatively really, really cheap.
Oh, because they save on that. Oh, okay.
Because in China, real estate was one of the only things people could invest in. Why? Well, because a lot of the most profitable companies are owned by the CCP. CCP leaders don't want to put this on the public market because then they would have to share the money with Chinese citizens. So a lot of the companies are wholly state-owned. That means public doesn't get any benefits of the Chinese companies doing well. That's why Chinese citizens mainly invest in real estate. They just buy up houses after houses. Now, of course, there are some cultural issues at play too. Families in China use real estate as a way to plan for their retirement. Single guys with real estate are considered attractive choices for marriage, and amount of real estate you own is directly related to your social status in the society.
Wow, very
Considering all
interesting.
this, you can see why real estate prices did continue to go up for most part of the last 2 decades in China. This actually kind of fed into the cycle.
I mean, I guess you could say that the real estate, how much real estate you own, is a social status
Like a portfolio.
everywhere in the world, but it's not like exactly something you tell on the first date, though. Like, you don't walk around with it, because like you can walk with a watch. If a watch is 500K or so, that's a social
that's
status.
true.
How real estate? How you don't know? Like you can see somebody wearing, ripped jeans, t-shirt, whatever, but they might own 6-7 properties. That's not something you would ever know. That's so interesting. So what you go on a date and say, oh yeah, one of the first statements is like, yeah, I own 12 buildings. Is that how it works?
Everyone started seeing that the real estate prices only go up. Families started buying real estate even more because they wanted a piece of that profit. The rush to buy houses was so huge that the developers were selling out complexes before even breaking ground for construction. However, even after construction finished, the apartments just sat there empty because they had owners but no habitants. Demand was high because everyone wants to buy their second, third, or fourth home. They wanted to just get rich on this real estate boom. So supply increased drastically to match
So
the
they don't
demand.
at least rent it out? They just sit on it?
I think there's no one to live there. I don't think they have a shortage. I think they don't have the people to live there. That's what I'm getting.
I thought this is a high population.
Apparently not that high. That's what I'm kind of getting. I'm getting the building just to build, but there isn't people to live there.
So what's the crisis?
The crisis, I think, is that people that have invested want to cash out and nobody's buying anymore.
Mm.
But a lot of these homes were sitting empty as owners were only buying these places in hopes of price appreciation. Based on one data
Right, but is the price is not going up? It's sitting the same. That it's kind of a bad investment because inflation.
You have me feeling like the people don't have nowhere to stay.
No, inflation devalues the money. So now if you paid 200K for an apartment but that was like you paid 5 years ago and the apartment is worth 200K today, but the inflation over 5 years, that 200K could have been 250.
You were greedy.
Yeah, that's
You
a bad
asking me-
investment.
Wait,
said from
I need to
2022,
understand the
Chinese
situation.
families had around 70% of their wealth in real estate. You heard that right, 70%. Not much for diversification, I guess. Imagine if
Yeah, that's a lot, way too much in real estate. You gotta do stocks, some bonds, the real estate.
Well, they
man.
can't do stocks because how they structure the companies there.
Well,
But I don't know.
buy international stock.
know.
I don't know.
I don't know if I can say that. Wow, the whole world they're actually going through shortages. Like people are trying to buy a place
Well,
to live.
move to China.
something were to happen to the real estate market. Well, this is where we talk about Evergrande. At one time, it was China's largest property developer. In fact, in 2018, they were actually
It's
the
kinda
biggest
like Bitcoin in a way, because people were in a rush to get all the Bitcoin, Bitcoin. But no, am I thinking Bitcoin or something?
You
No,
kinda
I'm
right.
thinking,
What, NFTs?
yeah, NFTs. I'm thinking of NFTs, and all of a sudden you have it, but what you gonna do with it? Difference is with property, you still have the property, but in the context
Kinda, I
of
mean,
China,
you're
it
not
kind of
wrong.
means nothing if everyone has. It's no longer.
Yeah,
attractive.
if
everyone have it, I don't want it.
if everyone has at least one property, having
And they say
more than
3, 4.
yeah, having 3, 4 defeats the purpose because who's gonna rent if everybody has a property?
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of right about the NFT example.
real estate company in the whole of Asia. Now, when
Maybe NFT essentially was nothing.
But
Here
this house in
it is
this context-
something.
In this context, it's nothing.
It is something.
What you gonna
but
do with
but
4 or
it's
5
similar, it's
houses if no
comparable.
one's gonna live in it? You're not gonna live in
It's
it. You already have a
comparable, yeah,
house, and probably
yeah.
the house is just like.
It's comparable. It's a good example.
people look at something that big, they just assume it's all legitimate. Oftentimes, though, that's not the case. Here in America, we learned that lesson back in 2008. If one had looked under the hood, well, the Chinese investors learned that lesson with the Evergrande. If they had looked under the hood before the crash, they would have realized that some of the practices that company was carrying out were not exactly appropriate. Let me explain. Remember earlier how I mentioned because of fear of missing out, FOMO, people were buying houses before construction even began. So, usually a company like Evergrande would lease a piece of land from the local government because in China you cannot really buy land. Then that company would turn around and sell houses that are supposed to be built on that land and receive full payment for the houses before even breaking ground. Companies would never have any issues selling out because demand was just so high. People were more than happy to take out a mortgage and buy houses just
So honestly, you wouldn't even, as a developer, you wouldn't even need to have money to start.
No.
You're just saying, oh, you know what?
I'm a developer.
Yeah, basically we can be developers. We go to China, we lease like the land. Okay, I guess we need the money to
Delays
lease the land.
until 2052.
Yeah,
Okay,
we lease the land.
I'm busy.
We lease the land and be like, okay, we gonna build this. People just pay us for the cost plus the profit.
And you take the money and you run.
No, you don't even have to run. You can build it, but you already have the
Oh, I'm
profit
not
in the
dealing with the
pocket.
phone calls. No.
Hire somebody.
in hopes of owning real estate someday in the future. Now, the big problem that starts here is that companies like Evergrande wouldn't actually use the money that they got from the sale to start construction. No, they would use that money
What
as a
did they
down
do?
payment to lease even more land so they can sell even more apartments for the future.
This is
Now,
this is
hopefully
this
you
is
guys
this
are
is a
starting to
problem
see the
past me.
problem.
This is no.
This is a Ponzi scheme.
This is a Ponzi
This is a
scheme
Ponzi scheme.
set up. I didn't. How long? You don't even need like 10 minutes to understand that.
This is a Ponzi scheme. That's exactly what the Ponzi people did. Bernie Madoff. I mean, different stocks, but
Money that was supposed to be used to build the houses is now going towards buying more land. So where is the money going to come to actually build the houses that Evergrande has
Yeah.
actually sold? Well, Evergrande was hoping that the pyramid scheme will continue forever.
Yeah.
But we know from basic math that it's literally not possible for a pyramid scheme to go on forever. At the end of the day, you just run out of people to sign up to your scheme. Chinese regulators should have caught this on way before it got so big, but this is where we have to talk about the second issue. You see, the local governments were directly benefiting from this real estate pyramid schemes that companies like Evergrande had going on. In China, one of the big ways local governments make money is by leasing out lands to developers like Evergrande. This meant that the more risk these real estate companies took on, the higher the bids on this land that the government was leasing out. Around 50% of local government's revenue was coming from leasing out lands. The same government that should have been protecting its citizens from these risky
That's
practices
crazy.
was directly benefiting heavily from so-called
Crazy.
risky practices. This is a prime example of perverse incentives, and this was one of the main reasons why China's real estate bubble got so big. YouTube just dropped a mind-boggling announcement. It is paying creators 60
I'm gonna
creators
see the
right now.
comments for this
Now,
one.
of course, that for a faceless channel, it's pushing to
You guys know
start
what to
and
say?
grow a
What
channel
is
to
it?
put all starting your own YouTube. This boost. Now, back to the video. Regulators were always slow to step in because it was directly benefiting them. And then when CCP did finally step in with its 3 red line policy, it was too little too late. Property developers had sold millions of houses and they didn't have the money to actually build them. This is why we continue to see protests like this one happening in China.
now I understand what the protest. Because initially, when they showed the protest, I'm like, I don't really understand why they're protesting. Now I get it.
I understood the protest differently because I thought, oh, it's similar like to here. Okay, I get it.
You like people don't have.
Mhm.
It's okay, they can't afford it, but here
Mhm.
it's not that they can't afford it. This is.
Sadly,
You know,
it
like the
seems that
deadly
one
sin of greed. This is it.
of these protests did turn deadly. The secretary of Ayugua subdistrict in Xinjiang district in Guangdong province was beaten to death by protesters from an island at the entrance of the subdistrict office, another fatal incident. Now, a lot of the reports around this incident is suppressed by the CCP, and the ones I could find were in Chinese. So I'm going off of Google Translate, so forgive me if I mess something up, but it seems based on my research, this was relating to compensation that CCP was supposed to give out to practitioners whose houses
Makes sense that it's suppressed by them because we ain't heard about nothing this.
were demolished. But it seems that this specific CCP official was involved in silencing the practitioners and making sure they don't get paid. I'm guessing some corruption was involved. So one of the angry practitioners waited outside the office on April 17th, and when he saw the official, that's when the incident happened. Now, as shocking as this was, to me, this wasn't even the most shocking part involving this beating. It was the reaction that the public had. According to an online YouTube report, it seems that the Chinese citizens were celebrating this beating, calling it that it must have been the CCP official who pushed this guy to his limits, and the officials love making life hard for the people. One comment even went as far as to put the whole blame on the CCP, saying that under economic hardship, the CCP's evil doing will spark public retaliation. This is where I want to talk about another stupid decision that CCP has made since this trade war started. One of my favorite stories is Xi Jinping banning Chinese airlines from buying Boeing planes, all the while he personally travels in Boeing planes. Well, Xi's answer is that all these Chinese airlines should be buying the Chinese aircraft manufacturer Comac and its flagship model C919 narrowbody jet. Well, here I have a perfect reason why they don't buy from the Chinese manufacturer. Here we have a Chinese 919 that literally fell into a farmland.
And that's exactly why I said I would never drive a Chinese car.
Yeah.
That's where we stop this video.
Can I see the comments?
Chinese car,
no.
Chinese
Oh,
plane, Chinese
no.
helicopter, anything that
Oh,
you put your life at risk that is made in China, I'm good.
No.
At least until they get rid of that reputation that Chinese stuff is plastic. I don't remember. Government golden rule number 1: never ever push the people to the point where they feel they have nothing left to lose. Yeah, Trump is doing that here a little bit, starting to push people to a point. It's not quite there yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
This is gonna get ugly, but it's about the time the Chinese people stood up for themselves. I mean, yeah, they should. Good for them. Well, good that they're standing up. I wish the Chinese people the best for they're standing for their freedom. Yep. Why is this bad? This is absolutely wonderful that the people who made that country are standing up. Oh, yeah.
Hey guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord, and as always, share as much kindness as possible.